All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, there's been some requests for an Unreal architecture detailed tutorial, kind of from start to finish. So, I'm going to be doing that here, and we're going to be doing a sci-fi hallway. So, I've just started a first-person, um, it's loud, uh, template, and just kind of started with the blank level and deleted all the stuff I didn't need. I've kept some things here. I don't know why, but made the ground a nice chrome, and we're just gonna kind of do something. I was thinking along these lines, something like this. So the first thing I'm gonna do, and this is just my workflow, you might find something that works for you. I'm gonna start with the Unreal geometry, the starter content under architecture. We get these little segments right here. So I'll start with some floor. And I can see that it's going to intersect with this. So let me just pull this one down a little bit. Okay. So let's say that that's going to be, if we walk forward, sorry, if we walk forward, that's kind of the length that we're going with. So that might be a little bit thin, but let's just go with it for now. And then I'm going to take a wall section, and it looks fairly tall, so I'll go 400 by 400. And I'll just drag that in there. And nothing's really going to line up unless we have our snaps set. So I'm going to make sure that I have this yellow thing checked. And I'm going to set this to 100. And that will just make sure that everything kind of lines up. So we'll get the floor to line up. Oh, I got to set this back to 10 first to get it to be in the right position. Okay. So there we go. And the floor would actually, this would probably go up a little bit like that. Make sure it lines up. Okay, and then if you set this to 100, then you can kind of build your corridor up. Hold down Alt, and you can kind of just continue that. So we'll just make this long, narrow corridor that reaches all the way from one side to another. If you hold down Shift, your camera will move with you. Oops. And there we go. And on the other side, we're going to take this wall. If we wanted to, we could take all the walls at once and duplicate them. And then I'm going to rotate them, and you might be like, why are you rotating it? It's already fine. But because the thing that I create is going to have just one side, I want to make things easier for myself later on. Just make sure that all lines up. Okay. And the next thing that we want to do is put a ceiling on it. So I'll just take these floor tiles. Oops. Delete that. I don't know what that is. I don't want it. Okay. And I can just select all floors like this with Shift. Hold down Alt. And again, I'm just going to flip it 180 degrees, stick that right on top, and that should line up. So this is our corridor. Okay. And it's going to be dark in there. Right now the light's not built, so I'm just going to throw in a couple of, hold down L. I'm just going to throw in a couple of point lights here randomly. And later on you can decide how you want that to work out. Okay, so that's kind of the foundation of our architecture. Just kind of blocking it is what we call this. And you can use Unreal's architecture. You could use the blocking brushes that you get here under geometry, and do your own thing that way. But modular is really the way to go because what I could have done, and a lot of I think my students do when they're first starting out, is I could have just done this, right? But the problem with that is you're going to have texturing issues, and if I create this piece, I can't reuse it really. I can only reuse it if I have exactly this length of hallway, and by doing it the way that I showed you, you're going to be able to use it in a lot of different applications. So now that we have that, there's a couple of things you can do to your lighting. I'm not going to get into um, adjusting the exposure and all that stuff, but if you want the lighting to look really good for an interior, I've got this set right here, Arctizer. Thank you for your contribution here. And they have a little tutorial, and I'm going to just adjust my light mask settings under world settings. I'm going to set the static light level scale to 0.1, the number of bounces indirect to 100, the number of skylight bounces to 10. This is going to increase our build time significantly. So environmental intensity 1. Oops. So if you do this, just be aware that you are going to have to wait longer. 230 and 0.02. So all those settings are good. Okay. And I just kind of like go with that. There are some issues sometimes this has where you'll have seams, which means you'll be able to see a seam in between your two walls. And there's some things you can do to fix that. I'm not going to go over that in this tutorial, but if I build my lighting now, it will take a minute. It should look pretty cool. These lights, just be careful if you're going to have point lights. They are set right now to stationary. If there's too many of them too close together, it will cause problems. And what you can just do is set them to static, and you won't have uh, the shadows and stuff won't be as dynamic, but it will still light up your room and look good. So as I build the light, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces of architecture, I'm going to pull them out of Unreal, and I'm going to bring them into Maya. And so I want to take this wall piece and I'm going to export it by right clicking, Asset Actions, Export. I'm just going to call this one, uh, that's fine, wall 400 by 400, and I'll put that on my desktop. And I'm going to do the same thing to the floor, which is also 400 by 400 centimeters. Is that right? 400 centimeters? I think that's right. Yeah. It wouldn't be meters. That would be too much. Okay. So now, while the lighting is building, I'm going to go into Maya. And you might notice if you go into Maya, and Maya has a free student version. If you want to use Blender, you're kind of on your own for that. But if you're a student and you go to university or high school, you can get a free version of Maya. But it's the same basic principle. So I'll just kind of walk you through what to do here. And there are some things you can do to set up the grid in Maya, just to make sure that the settings are the same so that these squares are the same as they would be in Unreal, and that might make your life easier. So you go to Window, Settings and Preferences, and under Settings, you can, where is it? The grid options are going to be grid options. Assets, files. Change the working, oh, it's under units, sorry. Units, I'm not seeing it. Interface, devices, display. Uh-huh. Well, this tutorial just took a sudden halt. I know it's in here somewhere. Settings. Oh, here we go. Sorry. And then you're going to change the units to centimeter right there. And then under grid options, under display grid options, display grid options, you can change the grid lines to every 10 units. Okay. And it'll otherwise you'll find your grid is very small compared to the size of the objects that you're working with in Maya. So let me pull this in now. File import. And I'm going to my desktop here, and I'm not super organized here. Oh, before I get any further on this, I do want to just mention that there's one thing I forgot to do. Yeah, and you can see there's some splotchiness and stuff that actually made the lighting much, much worse. So yeah, that does tend to happen. I'm going to not worry about that for now. That has to do with the light scale. I'll just set that to 0.5 for now. And you're going to want to stay organized. So right now I just kind of threw all these out here, and what you're going to want to do is put them in folders. So I'll select those and put them in a folder called floors. I'll say like sci-fi hallway floors, and then our walls, sci-fi hallway walls, and then our ceiling. Oh, I already got some of those. That would start here. Okay. I'll put a little subcategory in here. Sci-fi hallway ceiling. And let's take that out of there. Get out. It's not going to let me. Okay, and then I'll just create one more folder for sci-fi hallway. And will you let me take you out of here and put you into there? Yes, you will. Okay. So we got that. Let's put everything in there. So we got our ceiling, floor, walls. And you can turn those off. You see them. Okay. So back to Maya. What are we going to do next? So we have our wall. So what it looks like. And I actually probably want to let's take a look at our picture again. Okay. So we kind of have this curve thingy, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly rather than really take my time on making something extraordinary, just because I want you guys to understand the process rather than just making something really cool right now. So I'm going to create a new cube, and I'm just going to, I could work off of this one, but I'm just going to create my own, and I'm going to take the faces on this, and I'm just going to get them to line up. So I'm going to use the snap to points, and I'm just going to snap these faces to these faces. And what I'm going to end up with is a cube that is exactly the same dimensions and location as that other thing, which I don't need anymore. So I'm going to delete. So I'm left with this. So what I basically want to do here is do not mess with the corners here. They need to stay exactly where they are. They need to stay put and not be moved. I need everything to stay there, the top and bottom. So I might decide to come in with some edge loops and maybe like, I don't know, if you don't know how to do modeling, this is not the tutorial for that, but basically I'm going to, I don't know, maybe just push these guys in. Oops. I'll turn off my snaps here. Yeah. Before I do that, I need a couple more edge loops. So I'll take these, push them out a little bit, something like that. Okay, so you get that idea here. And you can do all sorts of cool little details. And I'm going to throw a pillar in between them. So I'm going to get another rectangle. And it's very important that the starting point on this rectangle matches that one. So uh, that's because your pivot, you want it to be in the exact same spot. So I'm just going to make sure that that's there. It's already centered, which is what I want. So when I stick two of these next to each other, it's going to work. And that can be the top of my pillar. And you just want to make sure it's, wide enough so that it will take up that space. So we have a pillar, and again, you can do some stuff to the pillar to make it look as cool as you want. I could make it thicker if I wanted to, but I would want to do that on both sides because this is gonna overlap two different objects. So we got our pillar, and maybe I'll just do a little bit of that same bendy stuff to it. Make 5 of these. And pull those guys up, bring them in. So it kind of matches. Okay. And then maybe like, I don't know, I want to put like a recession, depression, something that kind of goes in here. So I'll put a couple edge loops there and move those guys out. And maybe I'll get like these wall segments to extrude in and push out a little bit. So we get something like that. Okay. And then if you want to get fancy, like for this pillar right here, I probably would want to you definitely want to bevel your edges. And there's two ways of doing that. You could either select these edges and go into your modeling toolkit and do a bevel. And so that they're just a little bit rounded. Or you could do a high poly version of it, where you essentially would create some supporting edge loops, which is probably your best bet if you're just getting started on this. It gives you a little bit more control, and sometimes doing the bevels, unless you're really worried about poly count, it can give you some unpredictable results. So here I know what I'm getting. I put these supporting edge loops in, and I can tell the computer how I want these edges to bevel. And then I definitely need one on the ground that really doesn't move at all. So I want to stick that right up to the top. Let me just check and make sure I got all my sides covered. It looks like I do. And then I can come into high poly mode by clicking on this button, smooth it, and then we get this kind of, I can do it twice if I wanted to, because my poly count is at 6,000. It just depends on what kind of machine you're working with. I'll just do it once. And then again here, maybe I'll just bevel this time these edges. Bevel, and just keep this simple. Bevel. Let's see what that looks like. Ish, that's pretty gross. I'm not going to do that. I am just going to leave it alone. Maybe I'll just bevel these inner ones. Yeesh, no, I don't like that at all. Okay, I'll just keep this little poly, whatever. Okay, so now let's assign a material to this one. And I will, this one already has just the default material. I just want them to have two different material names for the purposes of what I'm doing here. And then I have to UV map them. And if you are not going to be texturing these yourself, like in Sketchfab or whatever, you might want to just do a UV automatic in the Unreal. But if you don't do this step, you're not going to be happy with how it looks. The automatic. If you wanted to get fancy and like make this a different material, in Unreal, you could assign just these faces a new material. And I'll just put like this wall panel. And I think that'll all transfer over. So let's take this and bring it back into Unreal. Export selection. And I'll call this static mesh underscore wall panel 400 by 400. And this is, I'll just stick it on my desktop because I'm unorganized. An FBX is what you want here. And make sure you check smoothing groups. Do the same thing here. And this is going to be static mesh underscore sci-fi pillar FBX. Let's bring these into Unreal. So I'm going to take, first I have to bring it in and assign it material. So I'm just going to go to my desktop and find those files. I think we called it sm underscore wall panel. Import all. And then the same thing with the pillar. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, with this wall selected, I'm going to right click and say, with this selected and this selected, I'm going to right click on the wall and say, replace with this boy right here. Yeesh. That's pretty ugly. Okay, whatever. And then I'll do the same thing to all the walls. So I'll just select them all, replace, and boom, look at that. That's kind of cool, right? And then I'll just throw my pillar in there. With the snaps on where they're at, I may have to just kind of play around with this for a second. Make sure it's even, but it should fit nicely there. And then I can set my snaps back to 100. Copy these guys. Hold down Shift. Do that again. I'm just holding down Alt and Shift to make copies of these. I think I'm doing that right. Am I making too many? Nope. And then I'll take these pillars, duplicate them, rotate them 180 degrees. With my snaps still on, this should be relatively easy to stick them right into place. And just one click over. Okay, so we have created our little sci-fi hallway. And I'll build that. And as I'm building that, the next thing you might want to do is the ceiling. So it's the same process. You would just we already have the ceiling in here, so I can leave these guys on right now and just hide them. So I'll just hit H. Probably a good idea to name them. So wall, pillar, and H, and we'll bring in our ceiling, which I think I already called floor, floor. Desktop. There it is. I'm gonna leave it where it is because that's gonna make my life easier because everything's already placed. Um, and then if I wanted to do something to the ceiling, which I'm not going to, but have at it, knock yourself out, have fun. And then you can see the lighting looks better since I set it to 0.5. We do have kind of a cool looking little hallway here. And then as far as assigning the materials, because I do have two different materials, I made one for the panel and one for the wall. I have all these Unreal ones to choose, and I do encourage you to go to the Epic Games store. I go to the marketplace. There's a lot of free materials that you can incorporate. But for now, let's just go. Maybe I'll leave these pillars white, and I'll change this to, I don't know, do something with that. Glass. There's nothing behind it. Um, you do like a really shiny metal, like a mirror kind of thing. Whatever. I'm going to just choose brushed steel. Yeesh, don't like that at all. Brushed nickel. Okay. And then if I want to do them all at once, I just select all these walls, and then I think we ended up going with, oh, is it not going to let me do them all at once? I have to deselect this one maybe. Change these guys to brushed steel. Nope, that's not right. That's that one. And this one was the kind of gold default material, projectile. Okay. And then maybe, I don't know, I'll just leave those as is, whatever. Oh, that's the wrong one. It's nickel. Okay. So let me get those again. Nickel. Play. And we have ourselves pretty cheesy little sci-fi hallway. So, I mean, obviously there's, your imagination is going to be the limit here as far as what you want to create. Because I've created it modular, I can then come in here and say, you know what, I actually want this to be a turn. So when our player gets here, turn this 90 degrees, and the pillar doesn't quite match up because we didn't set it for 90 degrees, but you could make a 90-degree pillar. And then you can continue this hallway in various directions, and it's modular, so everything allows you to build your own level however you see fit. And that's the real benefit of creating your own little modular architectural pieces. And that we did this in a very short period of time. In reality, this would take a long time just to create one piece. You might be talking 10 hours. So take your time with it, make it look good. I'm not going to get into like levels of detail or anything like that. And you know what? Maybe in the next version of Unreal, we don't have to worry about that anyway. But quick and dirty, you want to build your own little world, this is not a bad way to get started. And I'll just finish this little section and we'll take one last look at it. Okay. And, you know, again, probably throw a light in here. And I'm going to build, you don't have to stay and watch, but this is essentially the end of the tutorial, and I hope that you learned something that you might be able to use. It's not going to let me play the game because I'm building lighting, but this is essentially what we end up with. And then a chance to turn over here. The frame rate's really low because the lighting's building. Continue down the hallway. I obviously screwed these pillars up. I put them in reverse, but oh well. You get the idea. Okay, and if anybody wants, if you want to continue to watch, fast forward. The lighting will be building so you can see what it will look like when it's finished. And there we go. I guess that light over there is kind of out of bounds, but let's hit play. So we have our own little video game. And there we go. All right, have fun. Hopefully that was helpful.